Mark?
The era of a free state. I'm Mark Pennak. I'm from the state of Maryland. I'm the president of Maryland Show Issue. Maryland's motto is the free state, and yet it is the belly of the beast when it comes to gun control. And it is truly true what your prior panelists have told you is that if it starts in California, it spreads everywhere. And Maryland follows California and in some respects leads it in gun control. Maryland has the dubious distinction of being the only red flag law state which within 30 days of its enactment and effectiveness resulted in the death of a gun owner on the hands of the police seeking to enforce a red flag order. It is draconian. But there is hope. In this last legislative session, there was many gun control proposals, and we defeated all of them. And we did so by doing the very grassroots. Thank you. We did so by doing the very grassroots things that you've heard so much about. And that is actually getting out and meeting your legislators face to face. I go across the state of Maryland, and I urge every single owner of a firearm to get to know their representative, not only by name, not only by email, but actually to appear in their district offices. There's nothing more effective. I was a legislative aide to a member of Congress for years in my youth. The thing that makes the difference there is letters from constituents, but presence of constituents, people who actually take the time. Because politicians know that for every person who actually comes before them, there are 10 or 20 or 30 that feel the same way. And the most important thing to a politician is re-election, and re-election is decided on the margins. Your vote matters. Every vote matters. But I wanted to get into something different. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 45 years. I spent 33 years in the Department of Justice and 12 years in private practice. So we have a great opportunity coming up this year. The Supreme Court is going to decide a Second Amendment case. If not the New York City case and New York City's absurd restrictions on transport, then another case. There are, at last count, 6 cases before the Supreme Court involving various aspects of gun control. 4 of them have been held in two carry cases, one from New Jersey and one from the state of Massachusetts. 2 different circuits. There are others that are pending. We will get a decision this year that will set a new standard of review for Second Amendment litigation. That's critical, because up to now, the lower federal courts and all the state courts have been using this ridiculous tiers of scrutiny, which is nothing but rational basis in disguise. We have an opportunity after the Supreme Court decides this next case to start afresh, because I'm hoping and I believe that the court will impose a standard of review that will eliminate the precedential effect of all those decisions. And I urge all of you in this room who, like me, like to litigate. We have, Maryland Show Issue has 3 cases pending before the various federal courts of appeals right now, and that we have to be very selective in the cases we now push after the Supreme Court speaks in its next decision. Nothing wins like winning, and nothing's more demoralizing than losing. Be very, very selective in what case you bring before the federal courts. We have a new opportunity that's going to be here this year or next, and we should not fail to take advantage of it. This is how Brown versus Ohio became the law of the land. This is how the civil rights movement prevailed in the federal courts in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. One case at a time, establishing a narrow win, another narrow win, and soon it became Brown. We have to do the same thing. So I have to tell my members, no, I'm not going to sue Acela for banning firearms on the Acela train that goes from DC to Boston. Not that I believe that the policy is great, but because it's not a clean winner. But we have sued and to challenge the arrest of 2 of our members who were peacefully demonstrating on the sidewalks of Annapolis, the state capitol. And we've already defeated the motion for a summary judgment on dismissal on qualified immunity, and for those lawyers in the room, you know how hard that is. So that's going to be a winner. We're now in the Fourth Circuit demanding that the seizure of bump stocks without due process, but without compensation under the Fifth Amendment and under very powerful state constitutional provisions was illegal. These kind of decisions are the kind that you can actually bring that starts to undercut what the gun control agenda does. So that I was able to sit in front, and this, I emphasize, you need to lawyer up for this. Because only a lawyer can sit there and tell a committee chairman that your safe storage law directly contradicts this holding in the Supreme Court's decision in Heller, because it imposes the same sort of universal lock it up at all times requirement that the Supreme Court struck down in Heller. That bill was proposed in Maryland. It will be in all your state legislatures soon. It is the agenda of the Giffords and the Bloombergs and the Everytowns. The safe storage bill violates the Supreme Court's decision in Heller. And almost all of its way it's written. In Maryland, it was possible, if it was possible for a person under the age of 18 to obtain access to your firearm, possible, then you had to lock it up at all times. Well, that's directly contrary to what the Supreme Court said. And that bill died in committee. We were able to demonstrate by use of the law that you can't simply command a federal firearms licensee to conduct a background check. He has to take it into his inventory, and if he doesn't, he's violating federal law. You got to know federal law for that. This stuff works. That bill died. So when we were able to demonstrate with facts and statistics that you create a gun zone, and since 1950, 98% of the mass shootings have been in gun zones, the gun-free zones, then the bill that mandated a gun-free zone for every college property anywhere in the state, including thousands of acres of rural property, failed. These are the sort of things that help. These are the sort of things that actually make a difference and actually allowed us to prevail in this last legislative session. But you got to do both. You got to be able to sue. And so when you sue, sue carefully. Thank you.